This is the 2019 Interpretations of Accounts question, Shannon Plc. Just to look through the question, we have a little bit of information at the start of the question. We're given the trading profit and loss, and we're given the balance sheet, similar to ordinary level, except there's obviously greater detail involved in especially the trading profit and loss, but a little bit in the balance sheet as well. We're also given a little bit of information in relation to last year, 2017. We're not going to worry about that until we get to part B. Okay, so what are you actually asked to do? Again, for part A, 50% of the marks are going towards ratios. Again, there's 5 of them there. They're required to calculate for this year, 2018, and they are to calculate up to 2 decimal places. The part B is analysing the company, and C is theory. We haven't looked at that side of things yet. So, the first one that we're asked to do is we're required to calculate cash sales if the period of credit given to debtors is 1.5 months. So we have to calculate cash sales. Now there is no real indication whatsoever in the trading profit and loss or the balance sheet that's going to help you find cash sales. You're only given a sales figure of 960,000. So we are told to calculate cash sales, but we are also told that the period of credit given to debtors is 1.5 months. So calculate cash sales if the period of credit given to debtors is 1.5 months. If you go back now to your formula list and you look through for the period of credit given to debtors, there's a formula here. So it's debtors divided by credit sales multiplied by 365 or 12. So again, that's in your formula list, which is up here. I've done out this formula here. We have to look at this one because if you look at this formula a little closely, it's telling us how much our period of credit is for debtors, and we know that answer. It's 1.5 months. We're also able to put in debtors, and we know this as well. So in fact, once we've done out this formula, it's going to give us credit sales. So once we've credit sales, we've total sales, we should be able to find cash sales. So they've asked us to find cash sales, and they've told us that the period of credit given to debtors is 1.5 months. That's a hint that if we were to do out this formula and put it equals to 1.5 months, then we should be able to work back and find the missing figure, which in this case is credit sales. Then we'll have credit sales, we know total sales, and we'll find cash sales. So the formula here, if I plug in the figures, I know that my debtors is 78,000 over here. I know that my credit sales is an unknown figure. Why 12 months here? Why not 365? Well, this formula, depending on what you multiply, will give you either the answer in days or months. But I've already been given the answer for months. So I don't care for getting the amount of days. I'm looking for the amount of months because I can put this equal to 1.5. So that's what I've done. 78,000 divided by question mark, which is credit sales, multiplied by 12 over 1 is going to give me my answer 1.5 months. I just work this out and I find that my credit sales is going to be equal to 936,000 divided by 1.5 months again. So the answer is 624,000. That's what my question mark is. That's what my credit sales is. That is not the final figure because we are asked to find cash sales. This has just found me credit sales. But I know credit sales is 624,000 and I know total sales is 960,000. So if total sales is 960,000, total sales is equal to cash plus credit sales. Then I can plug in my total sales, plug in my credit sales, and find out what my cash sales is. So that's what I've done. So 960,000 minus the credit sales is 624,000 gets me my cash sales amount of 336,000. And that is the final answer to that part. So again, we're asked to find cash sales, but we're given a hint here. They give us the answer to the credit given to debtors formula, which is such here, and once we've put in all the stuff we found out, we didn't know credit sales, find credit sales, and then you can find cash sales. So a second thing we're asked to do is we're asked to find the dividend yield. So again, we're going to have to do a good bit of work for this one. The formula for dividend yield is dividends per share divided by share price in cent multiplied by 100 over 1 equals percent. So we can't work this out yet, as we have to find the dividend per share first. We actually know the share price. The share price is always given below the balance sheet. It's the market value of one ordinary share at the end of the year, and it's in cent, so it'll actually be 135. So we know that. We just need to find the dividend per share. So the dividend per share has its own formula. Again, all of these formulas are up in this part of your OneNote. They're listed here. That's my dividend per share formula. I've already put that in here. So total dividends minus preference dividends divided by number of ordinary shares multiplied by 100 over 1 equals cent. So total dividend. My total dividend, we know that. The next thing is preference dividend. How am I going to work that out? So we know our total dividend because it's the dividend paid in the P&L. I'm going to go up to my P&L. This dividend paid figure, that's my total dividend. So you're always giving your dividends that you've paid out, 55,000. So I know that's my total dividend. We also know the number of ordinary shares because it's given here in the balance sheet, 500,000. So we know this and we know this. We have to work out our preference dividend. So not only do we have to work out the dividend yield, to do that we need to work out the dividend per share. And to do that, we need to work out the preference dividend. So this is the third formula here I have to look at. It's not really a formula. You should be somewhat familiar with having seen these in cash flow before, or in published accounts before, sorry. Preference dividend. How do I find the preference dividend? Well, I know there's been issued 250,000 preference shares, and if I multiply that by the 8% return, I can find out how much my preference dividend is. The formula for this isn't listed up here because it's given in other questions. There's plenty of other questions in accounting where you have to find the preference dividend, published accounts being one of them. So it would be the preference shares multiplied by the percent return. 250,000 by 8% is equal to 20,000. That's my preference dividend. So again, I know this can be a little bit confusing because you have to do multiple things. But they've asked us for dividend yield. I have my formula, but I didn't know dividend per share. So I found the dividend per share formula. And this is the dividend per share formula. And before I worked this out, I had to find preference dividend, which I've now found. Therefore, I can go back to this formula, plug everything in here, and find out what my dividend per share is, and then finish this formula finally. So, to get dividend per share, dividend per share is total dividend, which I'm given up here to be my dividends paid, 55,000, minus my preference dividend, which I've just worked out to be 20,000, divided by the number of ordinary shares, which I'm given to be 500,000, multiplied by 100 over 1 equals cent. So once I plugged all that in, I found out it's 7 cent. Dividends paid minus preference dividend, divided by number of ordinary shares multiplied by 100 over 1 is equal to 7 cent. Again, this is in cent. So I found my dividend per share. Why did I need to find that? Because I needed it here, and to divide it by share price multiplied by 100 over 1 so that I have my dividend yield. So finally now I can finish this. We have dividend per share. We can go back to dividend yield, which was this formula. We already looked at it above here. I'm just taking it down to this point. Dividend per share divided by share price in cent multiplied by 100 over 1. Again, that's my share price. Bottom of the balance sheet. So this balance sheet here at the bottom. Market value of one ordinary share is €1.35. That is the same thing as 135 cent. So 135 cent here. My dividend per share we worked out to be 7 cent. So 7 divided by 135 cent multiplied by 100 over 1 gives me my dividend yield, which again is in percent. It's 5.19%. So that's what they've asked us for. They've asked us to find our dividend yield. That was the formula. We had to find dividend per share first, and that was how we found that one. And then we go back and we find our dividend yield. My final answer is 5.19%. The next two aren't as long to calculate. The third one is dividend cover. So dividend cover, the formula for dividend cover is as such: net profit minus preference dividend divided by total dividend minus preference dividend equals times. Well, my net profit is given in my P&L. It's about halfway through it. P&L here, net profit for the year 90,000. Sorry, so 90,000. So my net profit for the year is 90,000. What is my preference dividend? Well, I just worked that out in the last part. Preference dividend, total preference shares multiplied by percent return, 20,000. So I know that my preference dividend is 20,000. I know my net profit is 90,000. And I already know my total dividend as well, because it was the dividend that I paid out here. I also used this in the last formula for total dividend here. So 55,000 is my total dividend, and I know my preference dividend because it's 20,000. So 90,000 minus 20 divided by 55 minus 20 is 2 times. My dividend cover final answer in times is 2. So again, once you're given preference, once we worked out the preference dividend, we're given both of these, and the answer is 2 times. The fourth one is return on capital employed. So return on capital employed, again, we've seen this at ordinary level. So this is my formula for return on capital employed. Net profit before interest divided by capital employed multiplied by 100 over 1. So net profit before interest. My in terms of the one that we're focusing on, my net profit before interest. So net profit up here, I've copied the question here again, so I can look at it here. Same question as above. Net profit is 90,000. My net profit before interest. How did I get my net profit? Well, to get my net profit, I had all these figures, and I added and I took away the next figure. I worked my way down. I took away cost of goods sold, took away operating expenses, and I took away interest to get my net profit. But my net profit before interest is this figure before I took away the 15,000. So how do I find my net profit before interest? I just add back the interest. So I'm adding back the interest. It's 90,000 plus 15,000. 90,000 here for net profit. Add back the 15,000. My capital employed, again, is always given at the bottom of the balance sheet. It's the balance sheet figure. Balancing figure is 1,087,000. So 1,087,000 is my capital employed. I'm multiplying my net profit before interest divided by capital employed by 100 over 1, and I get 9.66%. So again, to 2 decimal places, it actually works out to 9.66. That's my fourth one. Again, it's shorter than the first two. The last one I have to work out is my price earnings ratio. So my price earnings ratio again has a formula. This is the formula. It's share price in cent. If you can remember, this is my share price is €35. Therefore, it's 135 because we're dealing with it in cent. And we divide this by earnings per share, and my answer is in years. Once again, we know market share price, but we have to calculate our earnings per share, our EPS. We have to calculate our earnings per share. Just like again, like all our other formulas, they're all up here. This is my list of all the formulas. You have this list of the 20. My earnings per share is here. So I've copied that formula in already. This is my formula. It's my net profit minus preference dividend divided by the number of ordinary shares. My net profit, already seen this. Net profit here, 90,000. Minus preference dividends. We've already worked this out above. We've used it twice. My preference dividend was 20,000. My number of, and I'll just show you again where I've seen that 20,000. We first worked it out here. Preference dividend. Preference shares multiplied by the return. Preference shares multiplied by the return. 250,000 multiplied by 8% is 20,000. So I know my net profit because it's given. I know my preference dividend because I've worked it out. My number of ordinary shares is given as well, 500,000 multiplied by 100 over 1 equals cent. This gets me my earnings per share. So I can find out my earnings per share. 90 minus 20 divided by 500 multiplied by 100 over 1 is 14 cent. Why did I get my earnings per share? I got my earnings per share because I needed it to find my price earnings ratio. So now I have my share price in cent, 135 cent, divided by my earnings per share, which is 14 cent. My answer is in years. So we go back to the price earnings ratio again. We're going to plug in what we have. Share price divided by earnings per share. It's the same formula as above. 135 cent for my share price. Again, I found that here. Divided by my earnings per share, which I've worked out here to be 14 cent. My answer is in years. It's 2 decimal places, and it's 9.64 years.